clerk to check on that.
Okay, Lindsay, you're all set to begin.
All right, thank you very much, Sarah. I'm calling the Monday, September 18th, 2023 meeting of the Community Preservation Committee to order. I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas.
Here.
Marilyn Fifield. Deb Converse.
Here.
Catherine Garofoli.
Here.
Tom Lee.
Here.
Farley Lewis.
Here.
Steve Robichaud. Not here, and Lindsay Council is here. This meeting of the Community Preservation Committee is being recorded and broadcast on the Town of Barnstable's Government Access Channel. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, the chair must inquire whether anyone else is recording this meeting and to please make their presence known. No one's saving this for a family home video? I'm disappointed.
Pure entertainment, we are.
Pure entertainment. All right, the first item on our agenda is approval of the draft Community Preservation Committee regular meeting minutes from August 21st, 2023. Everyone had a chance to look those over. They look pretty good to me.
Yep.
I'll take a
Move to
motion.
approve. Yep. Farley. Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Second, Tom. Any further comment on the minutes? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas.
I must abstain.
Thank you. Marilyn Fifield, have you joined us, Marilyn? Nope. Deb Converse?
I have to abstain.
Oh, that's right, you weren't
Right.
here either.
No.
Catherine Garofoli?
I approve.
Tom Lee?
Yes.
Farley Lewis?
Yes.
And Lindsay Council votes yes. We only had 4 votes. So we have to bring it up next month. Unless perhaps we could reconsider it if Marilyn comes. So anyway, we'll put that aside for now. And move to our letters of intent. A letter of intent has been received from the Barnstable Affordable Housing Growth and Development Trust Fund Board. That's a name. Requesting an additional $2.5 million in community housing and undesignated funds to replenish funds used by the trust in continued support in response to the ongoing severe shortage of attainable and affordable housing in lower price and rate ranges and the lack of inventory of homes for sale. I believe we have Jillian with us to go over this. You're
Good
on.
evening, everyone. I'm Jillian Douglas. I am your part-time administrator for the Affordable Housing Growth Development Trust Fund. And I can certainly be very brief, or I have slides if people want sort of history of things. I think probably you all know what the trust does and has done, but certainly I could go through that if people would like. This request is just at the letter of intent stage. You will have a full presentation when we have an application to submit to you. And the most important thing is that we are still pending the completion of the updates for the town's local comprehensive plan and the town's housing production plan. And from those, we intend to have published priorities and strategies. So at the moment, I can tell you we would proceed as usual, and I can go through the slides if you'd like, or I can just tell you we'll continue on. And I also would like to also entertain any questions that people would have about other projects or pending projects or anything like that.
You can just give us a brief outline of those. I think we'll save the slideshow for the application, and but maybe a look at some of your recent activity and projects in the queue.
Okay, I will then, I'll pull up, well, I guess I will do slides, just I'll go briefly through them, but I think I'll share the video. Let's see if I can share screen. If I can do this. Oh, missing it. Host disabled. Okay, well, at any rate then, in that case, just to remind folks, the membership of the trust.
You can share your screen now.
Give that a try. I'll try to do that. Come on. Where is it? There we go. So that is.
Yep.
Okay, so just moving along just to the membership of the trust. I think I mentioned before, but your town manager, Mark Ells, is the chair of the trust. Assistant town manager, Andy Clyburn, is the vice chair. The finance director, Mark Milne, also serves. Affordable housing representative, primarily because she works for a mass housing partnership and is an expert in the field of housing, is Laura Schufelt. Economic development representative, Wendy Northcross. She also comes to us with a great deal of experience with the Chamber of Commerce and economic development. And again, wonderful people that are very helpful and knowledgeable. So this request will be coming to you. It's basically just to replenish the funds that the trust normally uses. The rationale there is continued historic low level of housing for sale or rent in Barnstable for all households, particularly lack of affordable rental units for households and individuals with incomes at 100% or below the area median income. It continues to force housing insecurity and overburdening of housing costs, which means that households are expending more than 30% of their income just for their housing related expenses. I don't have the current data for Barnstable, but across Massachusetts, it is currently estimated that approximately 52% of households are cost burdened. I'm sorry, that's particularly for rental housing. I would add also that the current AMI is $80,600 just for an individual, and for a household of four, it is $115,100. Let's see, this is just more of the same. We're just seeking to continue what we have been doing, and I can proceed to what we've, I think I have 3 examples of projects that we've done before. Let's see, moving ahead. Your last allocation to the trust was 2020, and I guess since that time, the need has continued to increase. I can tell you we have allocated monies towards projects, and I think I put the number in a slide. It might not be this one. Yes, actually. So I'm just going to proceed with just a recap of some of the projects that the CPA funds have been allocated to. A $300,000 appropriation to the Housing Assistance Corporation. That was for temporary rental, emergency rental assistance. And that I mentioned is one of the things that we are seeking to explore a little further. In the past, Housing Assistance came to us with that application. As we go forward, we are thinking of soliciting applications for potentially for rental housing assistance and for other programs that the current notice of funding that we are using does not allow. So the current notice of funding availability is primarily for development activity, that would be construction activity, or pre-development activity, which will lead to construction. So we are currently focused on what I guess you would call supply side solutions to housing. So another option or another project that we funded was a regional project That was $90,000 that went to the creation of 5 apartments, basically single room occupancy apartments for veterans. The project was located and is located in Dennis on Route 134. It is fully occupied and has been for, I want to say 3 years now. Very successful. Also another successful was the $1.4 million that was allocated to Standard Holding. That was a larger scale development. 10 of those units were reserved for affordable, which means they are at levels of 50%. I should say they are affordable to households earning 50% or less of median income. And those also are fully leased up, my understanding, and I believe that was completed this summer and is already fully leased up. Let's see. So of the funds that were allocated in 2020, $1,433,736.84 of CPA funds were expended towards Barnstable's community housing needs. This slide will help you to understand, hopefully, where we are. And I guess what I just want to stress is that we do still have a balance. However, we do anticipate, because costs are rising on all fronts, cost of development as well as rents and costs for home ownership continue to rise as interest rates have not fully stabilized. So all of those factors create more pressure for the cost of housing, and therefore we are asking for funds in advance of depleting our current balance in anticipation of being agile and able to respond quickly when projects come before us. Any questions on that slide? Anything that, I guess I did want to talk a little bit about the pending applications, the ones that are committed. So in that third column over, those are the CPC funds that were allocated for affordable housing, and you'll see in parentheses funds that are committed but not expended yet. The forward phase 2, I don't know how many of you recall the first phase 1, but that also was a regional project in the town of Dennis. Created 8 apartments, or actually I think it was a group home of 8 living units. Phase 2 is now single, these are 1-bedroom apartments. And again, a regional project. They are requesting $375,000, of which we have committed, but have not expended yet. Applications that are currently under consideration. We have Linnell Landing. They are requesting $500,000 for a redevelopment project at 50 Yarmouth Road. That is an existing 3-bedroom house that will be renovated, and an additional 3 buildings to be constructed, multifamily buildings on that property to produce 15 apartments. And pre-development is 302 Main Street. They're requesting $50,000 towards the architecture, engineering, and permit submission for 2 units that will be converted from vacant space on a 2nd floor of a commercial structure. The last one that we are currently have in the pipeline is Housing Assistance Corps they will be bringing back another proposal. They had talked about 55 Falmouth Road, but their proposal for their, this is primarily support service shelter. So it's shelter beds, 60 shelter beds with support services it was going to be at 55 Falmouth Road, and I believe they are currently undergoing some reconfiguration of an alternative site. So that one we do expect to come back. They're requesting 500,000, and we do anticipate that we will be able to provide that. Let's see, any questions, any of that?
Yes, I have one.
Sure.
What is your average turnaround time for a project?
It varies, and of course the size and the scale. The ones that I have been present for, the only construction project was the 850 Falmouth Road, and that was 54 units, I believe. And it was basically a complete reconstruction of a site. So that started, I want to say they started construction in 2021, I believe they began, and have their occupancy was started this summer. So it is, that's pretty quick actually in my experience. Most of the projects that I've worked on in prior capacity take substantially longer, years and years. Several years is not unheard of.
No, and
Does that help?
that was a primarily private developer who
Yes.
gave 10%. So they're quicker than most straight affordables are. So this is helpful with the budget, and that'll be included, I hope, with your application, assuming we approve the or your letter of intent, because it's interesting to know what was spent and how much is left. So,
Lindsay, I have a question.
Certainly.
So Jillian, thank you for sharing these numbers. I want to make sure I have this right, and then I have a follow-up question about Project Forward. So you had said that $300,000 was allocated to HAC for emergency rental assistance, another 90 to the Dennis Veterans Home, and then the $1.4 million to the Hyannis Apartments. So that gets you to 1.7, right?
Yeah, it should, yes. I'm not looking at the numbers, but
I guess so if we're at 1.7, so you still have $710,000 left from that funding from 2020.
but
Yeah.
you've committed, or you have 3 other projects in the offing that you're setting the money aside for, right?
Right.
Yeah.
and
So-
I should add, we have not released funds to the Cape and Islands Veteran Outreach Center. That one is waiting. It has to be approved by the state. We're waiting for some finalizing on that one. So
I see.
that original 90,000 has not been expended.
And my next question is Project Forward, which Barnstable Community Preservation supported in the past. I didn't realize that it was also considered affordable housing. I guess I didn't necessarily think of it that way. Could you talk a little bit more about how they ended up approaching Barnstable Development Trust Fund?
Sure. So Forward is, the acronym is Friends or Relatives with Autism-Related Disorders. And so that housing is specifically for adults with autism or on the spectrum. And typically the way that works is that they also are income eligible. So if they are making less than 30% of median income, they obviously would be eligible for affordable housing. And so this program, Forward, has pulled together resources from multiple places and multiple funding sources. And unfortunately, I didn't bring any of that information this evening, but there are state funds that are going towards it. There are town funds from the towns of Sandwich, Yarmouth, Dennis, Brewster, and Barnstable. So it is definitely a regional project, and it is, and we are going to see probably more and more projects of anything of magnitude, and particularly anything coming from the public sector, it's going to be reaching out for multiple sources of funding. It's just the nature of it. I hope, does that answer any questions, or did you?
Yep. Thank you.
Lindsay, can I just mention something here quick?
Certainly.
I think for the phase one of the forward project, it came in front of us. It's before the trust time, and we approved that projects for the funding. So
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
We did.
Phase one, yes.
yeah, phase one. And the other thing is that we sort of projected that because of our population in the town of Barnstable, that a lot of the residents would probably be from the town of Barnstable. And so we ought to contribute to the regional project. And it was the first of its kind on the Cape. So that was kind of exciting. So we decided to have in with it. And it's still a great, real support by the board. It's a really good organization. So we did.
Okay.
I have a couple of things. I've been watching the trust meetings, as my job indicates, as a housing representative. And on your application, you mentioned two things that I have questions about. First of all, I'll say, as you remember, I'm the representative for housing and the Housing Authority. And there was one mentioned at one of the board meetings about how hard it would be to do a project with the town of Barnstable and the Housing Authority because they're both public entities, blah, blah, blah. And it was not necessarily, it was factual, but it wasn't right, if you know what I mean, because there are different ways you can work together and the publicness of both organizations doesn't have to get in the way. And it's just so you know, because the Housing Authority is hoping to develop a parcel of land that we own in Marston's Mills. So that was just a comment I had. I was kind of concerned when I heard that. And the other thing is, I know you've been working on trying to identify parcels that are owned by the town where they could be built on. And I know there's a lot of process that you've had to go through to figure this out. How close do you think you are to really targeting a town? I mean, that's what Dennis has done. That's why they did Project Forward. That's why they've done the veterans housing. The town is really stepping up and donating land. And this town is doing a lot of process. And I understand it, we're a big town, but how much farther are you as a group identifying what parcels could be built on or could be used? And that's
I can happily, through the chair, I report that there is a request for proposals right now on the street. It's also on the town's website. It's for development of a parcel in Marston's Mills. This was town land that was identified, I want to say 2007, possibly. It's been vacant since, I believe, 2012. And it is a proposal that they're seeking a proposal for the development of ownership housing. So, and it is a small parcel with some constraints with slopes. It does not have sewer capacity yet, and it is not. Yeah, so it is somewhat limited, and it's a shame that it's such a small parcel, but that one, October 13th, I believe, is the deadline for submissions. So we are getting inquiries into that proposal.
And I guess just again through the chair, Lindsay, is that, you know, it's like we've been saying, or I've been hearing people say, there's no developing our way out of this housing crisis. So, you know, that means we need to sort of think outside the box, and I don't have any ideas. I mean, I'm kind of limited by 35 years of experience in past housing. So it just would be helpful to hear some of the opportunities you see as a group coming up, because you're kind of on the front line yourself. And that would be helpful to know when, if we go forward to the application. And the other thing I was thinking would be helpful to me as an affordable housing person. I don't, on like 850 Falmouth Road, I don't care how many units they built for my part. I want to know how many affordables were there. I don't want to count the 50 that the 40 that they built. I want to know the affordables. And then if the LCP or the housing plan turns up that it's really family rentals that we need, which seems to be the case every year, I would question the $500,000, even though I believe in it, $500,000 for supportive housing or supportive services for people who don't have housing. It's just, it kind of flies in the face of, we need family housing, people who are working in our area. So just with limited amount of money. And I probably not a top thing. Oh, anyway, so that was one. And then, and the budget was helpful to me. I wanted to know more of the expenditures and where you stand. So.
Thank you. Anything else, Jillian? You have more to cover here?
Well, just to state that the data across the Commonwealth is coming through, that definitely, as Deb said, we are not going to be able to build our way out of this. However, there are, through much of the town's activities, all of the different zoning work that the town has done to try to expand housing capacity, the more that we can add to the supply of housing just generally, should have an alleviating effect on affordable housing as well. But there, I leave this slide up there. I was talking about the direct rental assistance, which is another, as I mentioned before, the CPA funds have gone towards that previously as emergency rental assistance to support an organization that provided a rental housing or a rental assistance program. So that is direct aid, and that is definitely one of the tools that in the tool belt of how we can also help, is to not just on the supply side, but also on the demand side, to try to help individuals who are desperately seeking housing. What can we do to help them get into a unit? And a rental assistance program would help to that effect. I don't know if that's covers everything, but that's, and then just the summary is just, we're asking to carry on our work using an additional $2,500,000 to work more towards potentially the demand side. So we would like to continue with our the current notice of funding availability is for construction and pre-construction, pre-development, but also we would like to expend funds in the area and explore different types of assistance to residents in need.
Thank you. Any other questions from members? Because I have a couple. You mentioned in the in your letter of intent about the lack of applicant activity. Can you attribute that to anything? Were your rules too difficult previously for that, or? It's
possible that would be part of it, but I think more than anything else, if you look at the economy right now, because there is such a severe shortage all across the state, anybody who's doing development, if they can build if they can build luxury housing, that's typically what they're attempting to do. If they don't have to build affordable housing, they're usually, greed is a factor. They're reaching for the higher return. So that, I believe, is the primary reason why we haven't had a lot of applicants. The other piece is that producing affordable housing and maintaining, monitoring, it's a challenge. It is something that is specialized. It's not quite as easy as, say, having luxury housing where you have lots of funds coming in for things like maintenance and amenities and things like that. So I guess that's
okay.
my summary.
Do you plan on expanding your incentives to developers, offering a higher percentage per unit, that type of thing? I mean, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I believe we are, well, clearly we are being asked for more money. So we are being asked, because just the construction side, construction per unit is more expensive than it was. When you look at an affordable housing unit, I just give the example, a project in Brewster, 54 units at and they're 100% affordable. The price per unit was $414 per square foot. So it's very expensive. In that was on land that was donated by the town even. So I guess, yes, I do anticipate that we are going to probably have to raise our caps. In the past, the current notice of funding availability caps the pre-development at 50,000, and I think honestly, in some cases, it costs a little bit more and requires a little more examination and looking into the sites and what it costs to develop. And then for the construction itself, we had capped at 100,000 per unit, and I think honestly, I do think that's going to be raised a bit, or we will be requested it at some point. So we're reconsidering the policies as well that would go with a new notice of affordable, notice of funding availability.
Thank you. The other question too is, one thing is the longer these things take, the rate of inflation on building materials it's just unbelievable. I go into these places and look at what I'm paying for things, and it is just staggering, the cost of things. So the longer these things take, even a span of a few months can make a proposal that someone submits obsolete by the time it goes through the system. So I think anything you can do to expedite that would be great. And the other thing I've noticed on the trust members, it's town employees primarily. And has any thought been given to bringing a developer on board, or a realtor, or both, to sort of help you get a picture of what's really going on out there and what it might take to bring in more projects?
I'm glad you asked that, because the trust is now considering expanding its membership. The original trust, the order requires a minimum of 5 members, but there's nothing that states that we couldn't add more, and we're in the process of investigating what it would take to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Those would be members.
Anything else? Anything else
Nope.
from members?
Good question, Lindsay.
Yes.
The trust should consider increasing the memberships to get some more idea from outside on the business world. The question I have only 2 questions. One, on the emergency fund, I know no one has asked the questions. Can you find out whether those emergency funds are going to be used only for the town residents?
Yeah.
If I could,
Sure,
yes.
certainly.
We would be restricted. So these would only be for, so the units, if we're supporting a rent, it would be for a rent in a unit that is located in the bounds of Barnstable. So any of the villages.
And second is, in the applications, can you tell us what in terms of 10% affordable housing, where are we on that percentage, right, on that target? And then, and then with just one comment is like, instead of 10%, can we looking at a little bit more, or 15% from some of the developments for the affordable housing?
I'm afraid I don't know the exact number. I think you're somewhere around 7%. I'm not sure.
I'm just saying
But
that when you do the detail applications wise, can you find that number out?
I will make a point to do that. Yes, I will include that. And I guess if your other question was, I'm sorry, what was the second piece of that?
Right now, I think your target is like 10%. So like Lindsay said,
Yeah.
Can that be a higher percentage rather than just relying on 10%? Can it be 15% or more?
That is certainly something that we can look at, and in a project we always try to extract more affordable units than what is being proposed, right. But again, it has to work. The bound, it really, the finances have to work. I think if I could state also, the town has an inclusionary zoning ordinance, so you have a requirement within the downtown district. Any proposal of 10 units or more must produce at least one, so it's 10% affordable units. And I know that the Planning Development Department is considering whether that should be raised, and if so, what would be the inclusionary requirement. So that's both of those things, the percentage is under consideration. I thank you. Good question.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay. We have a request here that would need a motion to move this to application. Anyone
Lindsay, can I ask one question? I can't
Certainly.
see. It's Gordon Starr. My question is, I don't think there was a clear answer to Deb's question about, is there a list of town-owned land that's available for housing?
Through the chair, I am not in possession of that list, but the Department of Asset Management does have they have a list of all of the town's land, and they actively review that for capacity for housing. I think when they've done so in the past, typically it's going to need to meet several evaluation criteria before they go any further. And I think what's happened in several cases is the properties haven't met enough of the criteria, and therefore they haven't proceeded with, and I think also through that process, through that vetting process, they are identifying what those impediments are. And again, we will continue to try to attempt to alleviate the barriers to developing those parcels.
Okay.
Gordon, I'm familiar with that list from years ago, and there's only a few on there. That's not any great gems that I recall. There's some ones that could definitely be developed, but it's a tough one. We need to incentivize really redevelopment is where we're at in the town of Barnstable. And the other question that I have ongoing is, when are we going to reach build out? I mean, we got to be close. The rest of the lots, many of them are marginal at best, and so our real future is in redevelopment, not raw land, in my opinion.
Yep.
Anyone have a motion here to move this to application?
Well, I'll make a motion to move it to application.
I'll second it.
Second it. Any further member discussion? I don't believe there's anyone else here from the public. Anyone else want to speak to this? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas.
Yes.
Marilyn Fifield.
Yes.
Oh, good.
Deb Converse.
Yes.
Catherine Garofoli.
Yes.
Tom Lee.
Yes.
Farley Lewis.
Yes.
Steve hasn't joined us, and Lindsay Council votes yes. Thank you very much, Jillian. We'll see you in October. And
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Good evening.
Thank you.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is applications. An application has been received from the Historical Society of Santuit in Katuitt, requesting $1,825 in community preservation historic preservation funds for their German POW bottle project, which involves the restoration of a time capsule buried by German POWs held at Camp Edwards during World War II and found at Point Isabella in Katuitt. The total restoration project cost is $2,375, with $550 being raised by the Historic Society. The Barnstable Historic Commission determined this artifact to be historically significant on July 18, 2023, and the restored artifact will become part of an existing permanent display about Camp Can Do It at the Historic Society. Thank you very much. I believe we have somebody here. Go ahead, you're on. You're muted.
Thank you, Lindsay. I'm Cindy. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. I'm Cindy Nickerson. I'm the curator and archivist with Katuitt Historical Society, as we call it for short. And thank you for having me back to make the actual official application for the POW bottle. And thank you to Ellen for guiding me once again through the process. Back in January, I do have some exhibits here, some images, and this would be Exhibit A. Back in January, a landscaper, Shane Adams of Marston's Mills, was working out on Point Isabella, and he found this bottle half buried in the ground about 20 feet above Katuitt Harbor. And he dug it out, and to his amazement found that there was a message in it. And from what he could read, he saw the words, prisoner of war, October 1944, with the German abbreviation OKT, and Camp Edwards, along with 3 German names. And being an amateur historian, he knew that Point Isabella had been the site of Camp Can Do It, a satellite of Camp Edwards during World War II. And he knew that there had been German POWs housed at Camp Edwards during the war. So he figured it was historically significant, and he brought it over very graciously to the Historical Society to put into our safekeeping. At the same time, he also contacted the Cape Cod Times about the find, and Eric Williams wrote a story, and that was quickly picked up by the Boston Globe and also by WBZ TV News in Boston. This whole media attention really alerted us to the fact that we had something that was very interesting to the public on our hands and that could help them connect to the history of Camp Can Do It. Actually, though we had a major exhibition on Camp Can Do It back in 2018, we really haven't had a permanent exhibit on it up to this point. So we're looking forward to making the bottle part of that. We also have a hand grenade that was found on Dead Neck, and we have photographs, and of course there would be interpretive text to go with that. You're probably pretty aware of Camp Can Do It, but it was constructed in 1942 to train the troops in the maintenance and operation of amphibious craft. And so they had tanks rolling ashore on Dead Neck, Sampson's Island, and also on the beaches in Pompanesett Bay. And at one point before the first units sailed for North Africa, they also staged a mock attack on Martha's Vineyard. You can bring up Exhibit B at this point, please. So a slight discrepancy on my application and the written part. I put that I went to the Northeast Document Conservation Center in March, but it was really April, as it says in the timeline. And while I was there, you can see the bottle again, but some very small rectangular pieces of paper came out of the bottle just by tipping it upside down. but they found that the fragments, which were on a Quaker rice flake cereal box, were too brittle to take it out of the bottle at that time. So they put humidification in the bottle, and then with long tweezers, they were able to roll it up tightly and get it out safely without harming either the paper or the bottle. So you can see at the top picture what the paper fragments looked beforehand, and then below what they looked like after the treatment, which included cleaning them and repairing them and flattening them. And you can see from the picture, one side there's the cereal box, printing from the cereal box, and on the other the printing that was done by one of the prisoners of war, and also the smaller pieces of paper, which are two of them are, I presume they were always blank, but one of them has the name and address of a prisoner, and then the two other prisoners' names and addresses are on the two smaller fragments, and their names were Lothar Gerner, Andreas Walny, and Johann Huppertz. Someone originally suggested that the POWs had been at Camp Isabella to dismantle Camp Kenduit. This was 1944, and the amphibian command had been discontinued. As I recently did research on some of the major hurricanes to hit the Cape, I became aware that there'd been a really major hurricane in mid-September 1944, and I know POWs were here to clean up the fallen trees after that, and that they were at Kenduit, not Point Isabella. So I think that theory is probably more likely, but it needs a little more research. We plan to display this in two parts. The fragments would go under UV filtering glass so that people could actually read them. No point in putting them back in the bottle. What the Northeast Document Conservation Center suggested was doing two-sided photographic facsimiles of the fragments, and which they made, and then they rolled them up and put them back into the bottle so that it would look approximately as it did originally. And there's an Exhibit C to show what the bottle now looks like. If you bring that up, please. Thank you. So that's what that will look like. And then the next image is just of the monetary breakdown of the NEDCC's proposal. The total was the $2,375, and that would include the conservation treatments, the creation of the facsimile POW bottle, and an archival custom storage box. And as you noted, we already have 550 of this in hand from a request we put in our July newsletter asking for support of the bottle, and we got 3 nice donations for that. So we're looking for the $1,825 at this point.
All right, thank you very much. Any questions from members? Any comments from the public regarding this? Gordon, being the only public?
Oh, I'm all set. Thank you.
All right. Anyone have a motion?
I move that we approve this request out of the Historic Preservation funding through Community Preservation Act. I might not have done that right.
No, that's perfect.
I'll
Close it
Is there a
now.
second?
Yeah, I'll
Second, Tom, is that you?
Sure.
Okay. Moved and seconded. Any discussion?
I
Everyone
think this is a
clear?
really great project. I think that it's really interesting. I think that it's amazing that it was found, and I'm really excited that we get to be a part of something like that feels really small and tangible, and you're going to have a great ability to educate others. And it, like, for us, usually the historic preservation requests that come to us are like big, you know, reworking buildings and things like that. But to see
Right.
something like this, I was pretty excited about this project, and so I'm really like excited that we get to be a part of it.
Thank you for that.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas. You're muted, Terry.
They're muted.
You're muted, Terry.
Yes.
Marilyn Fifield.
Yes.
Deb Converse.
Yes.
Catherine Garofoli.
Yes.
Tom Lee.
Yes.
Farley Lewis.
Yes.
And Lindsay Council votes yes. Thank you very much for your work on this. I too think it's a great project, a little bit of history, and I look forward to seeing the display.
I hope you'll all come see it, and I thank you all so very much.
Thank you,
You're very
Cindy.
welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the business for the evening. I have, we did receive some correspondence. The next item on the agenda. We got an update on all our active CPC appropriations as of the beginning of September from our finance director. We've been going through them and reaching out to folks on the list to take off some of the projects that have been completed where there still might be funding left. And we'll be back to you in October, hopefully with a final list of projects that will be remaining and the ones that have been discontinued. We had a request to readjust our scheduling of payments for the Community Preservation Coalition dues. You may recall we approved that earlier, but they want to go on to a fiscal year appropriation. So they are looking for the balance of their request from us this time, which will put us on a fiscal year. I think that will work better for our financing as well, as we're on a fiscal year. So we would need a motion. Do we have an amount on that, Ellen, handy? We don't have an amount on our agenda.
It was in the packet, but it's 7,900. It hasn't gone up. It's been the same for a few years.
Okay, 7,900. Any questions or issues with that, switching to a fiscal year?
No.
Do we have a motion to approve the dues to the coalition?
I'll make a motion that we adjust the coalition dues of $7,900 to a fiscal year payment.
And that would be coming out of our administrative funds.
Correct.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas.
Yes.
Marilyn Fifield.
Yes.
Deb Converse.
Yes.
Catherine Garofoli.
Yes.
Tom Lee.
Yes.
Farley Lewis.
Yes.
And Lindsay Council votes yes. We did discuss the trust fund report. I think that was a great discussion. I'm looking forward to some improvements in their processes over there. And I think it's a wise move to consider bringing on additional members. I think getting a developer on that crew would be great. So we have that. Now we go to project updates regarding the Mills property and the conservation restriction to be granted to the Mass Division of Fish and Wildlife. That'll be forwarded to the council as soon as possible. That's still under review, but we'll get it over there as soon as we can. I'd like to get that one off the list. And it wasn't mentioned during the application, but the Katuitt-Santuit Historic District is finishing the work on their building. They've done insulating and woodwork, and that's going along well. As does the work on the Unitarian Church, that steeple. I bet you they were glad to see we didn't get any 50-mile-an-hour or greater winds while that's going on. We did hear back from Mark Marinaccio regarding the 2 playground projects. They look to get started those in the spring. And those will be great to get those completed. They will make a significant difference. They have started, you might see the caution fencings around the Centerville project. So they're going to start dealing with that pit and putting some drainage in there. We're awaiting the results of the Wheeler Road grant, and that should be coming in October or November. And that will come up on the town council's agenda in November. And we did receive a revised application for COMM, and that will be placed on our October agenda for reconsideration. The legal department wanted a little more specificity in that application, so that's been completed. And we have some other items from member discussion. You have your conflicts of interest training, so when you get that certificate, make sure you forward it to Ellen, and she'll get it over to the appointments committee. They keep a record of those. And we did get our CP3 report, which is our annual report to the state on our funding. Ellen got that done earlier this month, so that's a great piece of work out of the way. We also have to continue our discussion on the our community preservation committee application process. We should probably send out a draft for the October meeting so we can finalize that. We wanted to get that pre-approval by the Mass Historic. We haven't officially taken that up, but I think we're going to need some background information. So if you'll remind me, Ellen, we'll get that to the members, what draft language we want in there, and we can approve that, as well as the execution of a grant agreement. I think this Katuitt Historic Agreement would be a great starter for a grant agreement. I think we were going to use a fairly simplified version, but where we simply say, we're awarding you this money, you have X number amount of time to do it, and these are the terms and conditions, you know, you're agreeing to. The city of Quincy had a very simple 1-page agreement that I think will work for us, and we'll get that out to y'all to consider. I think having those will avoid us getting these projects that seem to linger for years if we set a deadline, an appropriate deadline. I mean, some are going to need longer than others, but I think that'll keep us squared away pretty well. The next item is the meeting for next month. As I mentioned earlier, is going to have to be remote, as the planning board has asked for the hall. So we will be remote for the October 16th meeting. And the last item is our annual election of officers, something we do every fall, it seems. If you all are comfortable with doing it tonight, we could do it, or we could roll it over to October. It's up to you.
Well, I, for one, like it the way it is.
Would you make that a motion?
I make a motion that the current officers continue on to next year. Shall I name the officers?
Well, you probably should for the record.
Well, Ellen can name them for the record. Lindsay is chair, Tom is vice chair, and Marilyn is the recording secretary, whatever. I hate the term now, but to continue on.
I believe we call it the clerk.
Oh, clerk, better.
for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
Is there a second?
I'll second
Second.
that.
That's good.
Been moved and seconded to approve the reappointment of the existing slate of officers. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas,
Yes.
Marilyn Fifield,
Yes.
Deb Converse,
Yes.
Kathleen Garofoli,
Yes.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Farley Lewis,
Yes.
and Lindsay Council votes yes. That's unanimous. Okay, is there anything else that I missed? Any other public comment?
Can I mention one thing? Just
Certainly.
on the reminder, there is 2 certificates that you need to give it to the office is the online conflict of interest. And then the second one is the receiving the open meeting law material. So there's 2 certificates that you need to submit.
Very good point, Tom. Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Farley, you have something?
Yeah, no, I'm just curious. I did the conflict of interest. Is there a link for the open meeting law?
There is.
There is. Okay,
Yeah.
go look for it.
You have to look at the initial email from Cynthia Love from the town council office.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
All right. I've got to check that too, because I didn't catch that either. So the
Yeah.
open meeting, oh, very good.
I can forward it again.
Oh,
That'd be great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Please.
Anything else from members? Seeing none, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the roll. Terry Duenas,
Yes.
Marilyn Fifield,
Yes.
Deb Converse,
Yes.
Kathleen Garofoli,
Yes.
Tom Lee,
Yes.
Farley Lewis,
Yes.
and Lindsay Council votes yes. Thank you very much, members.
Okay.
Great meeting. And we'll get those items out to you that we promised, and we'll see you in October.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Thank you.
Very good.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.